Hello and welcome back to my little Reddit stories and Minecraft series. I'm gonna start doing this regularly. I feel like it's fun. If you've noticed a little bit of an increase in video or audio quality, I tried. Today's a little different. I originally was doing Reddit stories, like genuine stories, things that had happened to real people. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. Today I will be reading some Reddit horror stories from the subreddit r/nosleep, all by user Sam Haysom. It's, to get a little bit into the mood for that good Halloween spirit, that spooky, scary skeletons time of year. So, without further ado, I shall get started. I'm also going to be kind of improving on my little base here. So I think I'm going to start clearing away some trees. Anyway, here we go. My grandma used to tell me scary stories when I was little, and there was one I would never forget. I was 10 years old when Grandma came to live with us. It was about 6 months after Granddad passed away, and I guess looking back, she must have been lonely in that big house of theirs, rattling around with only the grief and memories for company. So, just stories I'd laugh off, or forget about not long after she was done telling them. But there were a couple that really did spook me a bit. I was only 10 at the time, so you have to understand. Grandma certainly knew how to bring the stories to life. She'd shut off the lights in my room so only the glow of the night sky shone through the curtains, and she'd shuffle in real close. Close enough so I could see the wrinkles on her face and smell the boiled sweets on her breath. Close enough so her deep blue eyes could stare straight into mine. She must have given me nightmares with a few of those tales, but now, years later, there's only one that I can still remember. Only one that stuck with me. The story about the shower and Mr. Longfingers. Grandma told me about Mr. Longfingers one night after I asked about her baths. Grandma used to love her baths. She'd spend ages in them, light candles and incense, and lie in the tub humming to herself until the water turned cold. It drove Mom crazy, but when I asked her why she loved them so much, she said it was the only place she could relax. It was the only place that was safe for her to relax. You know, people like me who are, well, more sensitive to certain things, we have to have baths, she told me seriously one night, shuffling closer on the bed. I couldn't possibly spend that long in the shower. It'd be far too risky. Grandma stared at me with those blue eyes of hers, unsmiling, and I knew it was time for one of her stories. One of the scary ones. I shivered with pleasure and pulled the covers up to my chin. Why is it risky, Grandma? She half turned to look out the window, watching me from the corner of her eye, pausing for effect. I waited, feeling my heart rate pick up ever so slightly in my chest. Well, she said after a moment, it's only risky if you close your eyes, of course. If you close your eyes for longer than 10 seconds. What do you mean? Why? Well, do you ever play that game in the playground with your friends? The one where someone turns their back and the others sneak up on them when they're not looking? I nodded and Grandma nodded back. Exactly. So that's what it's like in the shower, when you have your eyes closed. That's what it's like with Mr. Longfingers. Who's Mr. Longfingers, Grandma? She let out a deep breath as if she wished she hadn't said anything, turned her head back to face mine. When she next spoke, she lowered her voice. No one knows exactly, Grandma whispered. Some think it's a creature that's attached to the heart, to the heat and smell we give off in here. Others think it's a demon who finds its way into our realm through the dense steam clouds. No one can say for sure, because the only ones who have actually seen Mr. Longfingers aren't ever going to be able to tell you. I pulled in a breath. Why not? Grandma shuffled closer along the bed and leaned towards me, leaving my question hanging in the air. Don't you worry about it, sweetheart. Don't you worry your pretty head. As long as you remember the rules, you'll be fine. What rules? Well, when you're in the shower, try not to close your eyes for too long. 5 seconds is fine, and 10 is just about okay too, but any longer than that. Yeah, then what? Well, any longer than that, and you may just start to feel something in the room with you. Something watching. And if you ever go longer than 15 seconds, that's when you might hear a noise, too. Hear what? The soft tap, tap, tap of fingers on glass. Fingers drumming against the glass door of the shower. If you ever do hear that noise, God forbid, will you make a promise? What, Grandma? Promise me you'll never open your eyes. I barely slept that night, hardly at all. I'd close my eyes and try to relax, but every time I did, I'd imagine a face pressed against my bedroom window, staring in at me. And when I did finally get to sleep, I had nightmares. Bad ones. I had them all week, in fact. Dreams about disembodied eyes watching me in the dark and long fingers reaching out to touch my exposed skin. It wasn't any better when I was awake either, not really. The shower was the worst. That's when Grandma's story really got to me. I'd never thought about it before, but suddenly I had trouble shutting my eyes in there. I'd be standing beneath the beating water, shampoo running down my face. And as soon as I squinted my eyelids closed, I'd hear Grandma's words running through my head. 5 seconds is fine, and 10 is just about okay too. But any longer than that, I'd rub my hair fast, feeling the shampoo dripping off my chin, and as soon as I'd counted past 5, I'd feel it. A sort of pressure. Not a feeling of being watched exactly, but something close to that. I'd run my fingers faster and faster through my hair, frantically trying to get the suds out, and the ready blackness behind my eyes closed, coupled with the rush of water in my ears, would feel like a held breath. Like the silence before a scream. The seconds would race through my mind, and I'd be so desperate to open my eyes again that I'd sometimes do it before my hair was rinsed fully clean, and my eyes would sting with shampoo. Before I shut them again, I'd always be sure to peer out through the stained glass door of the shower cubicle, just to make sure I was still alone. It wasn't long before Mom realized something was up. She heard me crying out in my sleep one night and came in to comfort me, asked me what the matter was, and it all came out. I told her about Grandma's story. About Mr. Longfingers. She got this look on her face when I was telling her, like she used to get with me when I'd made her really mad. This wide-eyed, angry look. Only this time she wasn't angry with me. She was angry with Grandma. My parents' room was next to mine, and sometimes if I pressed my ear against the wall, I could hear them talking in there, soft whispers. That night, though, after Mom was satisfied I wasn't scared anymore and she'd gone back to her room, the whispers weren't soft at all. Oh, no. I heard Mom hissing to Dad about Grandma, about the story she'd told me. Mom's voice floated above the wall, sharp and crisp. You know what your fucking mother said to him now, don't you, Simon? Dad's response was an unintelligible mutter. She told him there's a monster that'll get him if he shuts his eyes in the shower. A monster! The poor kid's been having nightmares about it all week. Seriously, Simon, you better say something to her tomorrow morning first, or I will. Grandma came to visit me in my room the following night. This time, as she perched on the end of my bed, there were no stories, nothing like that. Grandma just sat there and stared down at me, her blue eyes wide and sad. The light from the moon outside my window lit up her wrinkled face. You know I'd never let anything bad happen to you, don't you? She said after a moment. I nodded my head. I know, Grandma. You know I wouldn't let you come to any harm. I nodded again. Okay, good. That's good. She looked away from me for a moment out the window. You know the things I tell you in the evening are meant to help you, sweetheart. They're meant to toughen you up a bit, protect you. She paused and shook her head. But maybe your mom's right. Maybe I went too far this time. She looked down at me and smiled, but even then, even though I was only 10 years old, I could tell it didn't quite reach her eyes. I'll tell you what, Grandma said. You know what I told you about Mr. Longfingers in the shower? Well, I'm gonna make sure you're safe. I'll scare the bastard off. How about that? It won't come back in a hurry if it has to face me. I stared up at Grandma, watching her face glow in the midnight, watching her smile down at me. I nodded my head once. I was the one who found her. I don't know when exactly it happened, but I'd guess it was about a week after we had that talk in my room. A week after she told me she wouldn't let me come to harm. I woke early that morning from a bad dream to a heavy thumping sound. I sat bolt upright in bed. My room was quiet around me, and I couldn't hear anything from the wall that joined my parents' room either. But the house wasn't entirely silent. Floating down the hall, muffled by my closed door, I could hear the rushing water, the noise of the shower. I leapt out of bed and ran down the upstairs hallway, heart already pounding in my chest. As soon as I reached the closed bathroom door, I started banging on it. A deep terror was welling up inside me like cold water from a well. Something I couldn't place, and I kept banging and shouting, "Grandma!" over and over again, even though she didn't respond. Off to my right, I was dimly aware of voices from my parents' room, the sleepy shuffle of footsteps. But before they had a chance to make it out onto the landing, I'd lifted my hand to test out the door handle, more out of instinct than because I thought it might actually open. But the door wasn't locked. I kept banging with my free hand, and it swung suddenly inwards, bringing me face to face with a wall of steam. Heat struck my skin. I squinted my eyes against the damp fog and peered into the bathroom. And before Dad pushed me to one side, before everything around me descended into shouting and tears and chaos, I saw her. I saw Grandma. She was lying naked on the floor in the shower cubicle, the water beating down around her, blue eyes bulging from her face. One hand was curled against her chest, like a dead bird, while the other trailed against the glass of the shower cubicle. The flailing finger marks she'd carved through the steam were still clear and fresh. There is a zombie, and it is somewhere, and I just can't find it. Take a brief pause here to try and find the zombie that killed Grandma. Because it was definitely a zombie that killed Grandma. Believe me, I saw it. It was not Mr. Longfinger. Right? Gather a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and actually let me grab some shears. If you like stuff like this, if you like the scary and the actual stories rather than, am I the asshole posts, let me know and I'll make more like this. I'm personally a big fan of fictional stories just because, English major. Always have been, always will be. So, just let me know. Look, an ocelot. I wish you could still tame those because they're so cool. Let's just gather up. Alright, we've got some leaves. Gather some more leaves. Alright, is that all of the leaves? We will have to make, some more lights. Need torches. Keep Mr. Longfingers away. Okay. Is it this way? I don't understand. Oh well, I'll find it later. It's not close enough to my bed to make an issue. Okay. It was a heart attack that killed her. That's what my dad told me. He said Grandma was old, and the thing that struck her quickly and suddenly. She would have died fast and without pain, Dad said. She wouldn't have suffered. I knew better, though. Even as a 10-year-old kid, I knew better. And years later, writing this as an adult, I still know better. I also know my wife and kids resent me for refusing to have a shower in the house, for insisting everyone take baths. They pretend it's okay, and they humor me, but I can tell they don't really understand it, not at all. My wife thinks she does. She thinks I still carry the trauma of seeing my grandmother dying in front of me when I was little. And I guess she's right, in a way, but she doesn't know the full truth. Nobody does, and no one would believe me, even if I told them. No one would believe me if I said the reason I don't take showers, the reason I haven't had one since I was 10 years old, isn't because I'm scared from the sight of a dead body. It's because all those years ago, when I crept back into the still hot bathroom after the paramedics had taken Grandma's body downstairs, I made sure to check the marks her fingers had carved through the steam glass of the shower cubicle. And those marks, they weren't just on the inside. Holy mackerel. It sounds like Mr. Longfingers may or may not have eaten our grandma. Oopsie. Let's do a bit of that. We're gonna make kind of a balcony situation. Expand outwards, you know. And the second ones will be here. Yeah. So very scary. There are 2 more stories I have from this creator. But I'm gonna take a little bit of a buffer so we can digest what had happened. My reading isn't the best, so you're gonna have to bear with me for that one. I kind of stumble, if you can't tell, but hopefully it's not unbearable. Alright, so I'm actually gonna turn these into kind of staircases instead of, because I want this to be on that level. Yes, okay. So we're gonna do a bit of home improvement in the meantime. I haven't been streaming a lot lately, and it's mostly because I'm kind of busy, and then it's also just because it's kind of hard to find as much entertainment in streaming as I used to. And that's not because, you know, it's not a boring thing, streaming. It's just that a lot of times the things that you want to stream are not really entertaining to watch live unless you're really, really good at streaming. And I fear I'm just not. So I'm gonna work on, you know, my internet presence and stuff in the privacy of my YouTube channel until I'm a little more confident. We have a little balcony now. Whoa, ow, Jesus. See, SMH. Okay, let me make some fences. Yes, yes. Maybe keep ourselves a little safe. Don't need those. And bam. So let me do that number. Ooh, nice and oh wow, that's pretty. The shaders are a little glitchy, but I don't hate them. I think they're just, you know, a little glitchy. So we'll do that. We'll do this number. Wait, how did I do that? Okay. Off the side. So, yes. Yes. Okay. It's not symmetrical because it never is. But it's fine. Let's make it. Oh dear. Okay. There we go. There we go. Perfect. And then 1, 2. Let me like do a little bit of this. I'm not the best at design, but you know, we do our best. We do our best in these parts. So do that and do, there we go. That's not right. There we go. Okay, perfect. So we've got, ooh, we've got all this, and then I'll get some torches up here as well so that we can, you know, holy mackerel. Okay, I got scared for a second. I thought that we didn't have any coal, and we're actually running out of coal very quickly, which is not great. So I'm gonna do one there, one there, one there, and one there. Perfect. Let's go to sleep. Oh. It's so dark out, you would think that it's nighttime. It's not. I really like that up there. That overhang. I think I'm gonna do something to have it like come down. I always like jungle biomes because I have this like tree house. I used to be a big fan of Treehouse Masters, like that show, and I just feel like there's a lot that you can do with jungle biomes that people don't do. So, gonna get some more fences. Run up here and there we go. Perfect. We have some apples. I'm actually gonna save all of my apples because I want to make gapples. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna organize a bit of a mining expedition so that I can get more coal. I don't want to go too deep because, you know, it's not really gonna get me a lot if I go deep. So actually what I'll do, I'll end up sleeping. Let me take, I have this. Take the melons. I will sleep, and after I've slept, I will head out and in search of a surface level mine. So until then, let me start up this new story. My grandma used to tell me scary stories when I was little. There's one I only just remembered. It's starting to come back to me, slowly, bit by bit. I don't know if it was opening up about my grandma's other bedtime story that did it, or the fact that my wife finally persuaded me to try counseling. But whatever the reason, my memories are returning. Memories from my childhood, memories of Grandma, memories of the stories she used to tell me before I went to sleep. See, I always knew there were others, other tales that scared me when I was little. But the time before I was a teenager is like a dark landscape. Only a few patches are lit up. It's getting clearer now, though. The shadows that litter the black land are finally being forced to retreat. The thing is, I'm not sure if I want to see what they've been hiding. I must have been around 7 years old when Grandma told me about the special knock. I was tucked up in bed at my parents' first house, in my little room at the back at the time. Grandma was perched by my feet. I'd been crying. I don't know what upset me, but I remember my eyes blurring and my nose running. I remember probing a cut in my lip, touching it over and over again with my tongue. I remember the frown on Grandma's face, a look that was half concern and half something else. After she'd grabbed a tissue for me and wiped my face, she got up and walked away from the bed, wandered over to the cupboard on the opposite side of my room. I remember that cupboard well, before we moved to our second home. That cupboard was the source of many sleepless nights for me, many nightmares. I used to imagine all sorts of things about it. I'd lie awake, sometimes for hours, and I'd have to keep peeking my eyes open to check the cupboard door was still closed, to make sure it was shut tight. See, whenever my eyes were closed, and I heard a creak somewhere in the house, I'd imagine it was the cupboard door, that something on the far side was trying to open it, ever so softly, so it could come and get me while I slept. I had never told anyone about this fear, even at 7 years old, and I knew it was stupid. Baby stuff. But as I watched my grandma stop in front of the cupboard and lean her wrinkled cheek against the wood, I felt myself growing tense all the same, even though the lights were on, even though there was an adult in the room with me. And when Grandma closed her eyes and started whispering, I had to fight the urge to shout for my parents. "Grandma?" I could hear the uncertainty in my voice. "Grandma, what are you doing?" For a few more seconds she didn't respond, just kept her eyes closed and kept muttering. Then, abruptly, she turned to face me again, smiled, and when she came back and resumed her usual position at the foot of my bed, I knew it was story time. "Did I ever tell you about the special knock, sweetheart?" I shook my head. "No? Well, maybe I was waiting until you were a bit older. A special knock can be wonderful. It can lead you to see things you wouldn't be able to conjure up even in dreams. But it can also be, well, dangerous." Grandma glanced away from me, towards the bedroom door. "Maybe it's for another time, in fact. I really should be getting home to see your grandfather, and I wouldn't want to scare you." She started to get up from the bed, but I stopped her. No, don't go, Grandma. What's the special knock? Grandma's blue eyes twinkled. She hovered where she was for a moment and then sat back down. The special knock is an old trick a friend of mine taught me when I was younger, she began. Not everyone can do it, and not everyone would want to do it. You have to be brave and careful and, well, special. Grandma smiled at me. Like you. As I watched her, she reached into the front pocket of her cardigan and pulled out 2 boiled sweets. Passed one to me. I'd already brushed my teeth, and I knew Mom would kill me if she caught me eating sweets before bed. But this was my time alone with Grandma. Mom was downstairs with Dad. She'd never know. I unwrapped the sweet and popped it in my mouth, feeling the sticky mint wash over my tongue. The cut in my lip stung slightly, but I ignored it. When Grandma next spoke, she'd lowered her voice. When I was over by your cupboard door just now, I was using the magic words, secret words that only a few other people know. Do you know those words too? I shook my head. They turn a door into a window, a sort of gateway. The thing is, sweetheart, this place you spend your days in, this house where you live, and the building you go to school in, and the town you visit with your mother at the weekends, it's not the only place. There are other places too. And if you use the special knock on that cupboard door of yours, now that I've whispered the magic words to it, you'll see them. You'll be able to see those other places for yourself. I stared at Grandma, concentrating on her words, absorbing them. Mint flooded my mouth, but I forgot to swallow. Now, listen to me carefully, Grandma continued, because this is the important bit. The way you open the window is by doing the special knock, but you have to get it right. 7 knocks on the door is what you'll want. 7 knocks, no more, no less. Then you open it. You won't be able to step through, but you'll have one heck of a view, all right. A view of what? I swallowed. Well, I don't know its real name, but the woman who taught me the special knock had her own name for it. She called it the lunar plane. 7 knocks to take you to the lunar plane. I could try and describe it to you, sweetheart, but I honestly don't think I could do it justice. You just have to see it for yourself. All I'll say is it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And trust me, I've seen plenty. Grandma plucked the sweet wrappers from the duvet, put them back in her pocket. She put her hands on her legs, and as if bracing herself to stand, and then she paused. How many knocks did I say? 7, Grandma. That's right, 7. Don't forget it either. If you get the wrong number and then open the door, she glanced across at the cupboard and frowned. Well, just make sure you don't get the wrong number, okay? Okay, Grandma. And will you make me a promise? What? If you do somehow knock the wrong number of times, especially if that number happens to be 13 or something close to it, then whatever you do, do not open the door, okay? Don't open it, no matter what you hear on the other side. The last thing you want is to open a gateway to the Blacklands. I felt icy fingers down my back. I glanced across the closed cupboard door in the shadows at the far end of my bedroom. Well, what's the Blacklands? Grandma stood up and wandered over to me, leaned down and gave me a kiss. You don't want to know, she whispered. I spent the next week avoiding the cupboard. I didn't go anywhere near it. Tried not to even look in its direction. Did my best to push through Grandma's story as far out of my mind as I could. And it wasn't easy. Whenever I was alone in my room and the house was silent, I'd feel it. A sort of pull, like when someone tells you not to look at something and suddenly all you want to do is take a quick look. The feeling was sort of like that, but it was different too. Stronger. Sometimes when I was lying in bed at night, I'd feel the cupboard almost like a weight in my mind, a heavy, static energy. It made me restless, made me want to scrunch up my fists and grit my teeth. When I turned away from the cupboard, my skin itched, like my pores had tiny, invisible bugs in them, and it made it hard for me to sleep. And now is a wonderful time for me to remind everyone listening that your bones can itch. Your teeth, well, they're probably itchy too. You're breathing manually now. And I've cast widespread misery Oh, look, horses, actually. Let's run up here, say hi to these horses for a second before we, you know, are spooked again. Okay, look at these horses. I'm gonna see if any of them are worth taming. Okay, he's pretty good. Also pretty good. Decent. Can I kill any of them? Ooh, best one. And then there's you. Okay. See, I only take horses if they have, like, very good health. Because it generally means that they can be kind of fast, too. You can have a really beefy horse with, like, really low health, though. Or, sorry, a really beefy horse with low speed. But this guy, he's the one we get to kill. And he gives us leather. Okay. So now that we've done all that, checked all those horses. Oh, that's what we need right there. Hopefully this goes a little bit deeper. Hello. Okay. Perfect. This is exactly what we needed. Let's mine some coal, some free XP. Hopefully I'll be able to find my way home, because if I can't, it's whoops, you know. But I'm sure we'll figure it out. Wow, look at all of this stuff. Wow. This is exactly what I needed. Hell, I could probably go home with just this and continue working on my home. Yeah, I think I'll head back. I don't particularly want to be fighting crazy mobs or anything. So let's head home. I need to build a farm. I need to build, better sleeping quarters. Places to hold animals. Places to hold a nether portal. Which I'm pretty close to having everything for. I need 3 more regular obsidian. And then we can get to the nether. And once we're in the nether, we can do all kinds of really cool things. We can get stuff to make potions. That's going to be my chief priority, actually. I love having potions. They make everything a lot less scary. Especially, when it comes to lava. Usually, I get really stacked really fast and then lose everything in a pool of lava. And, that's just never fun. Or I venture out into the world and lose my home. Is it over there? See, that's very shiny light. And it's gorgeous. But it's not what I need. I think I need to go up. I think getting up high. Oh, never mind. I should have just followed the shiny light. The light guides the way. Oh, I should probably put some lights under here. Okay, there we go. Now we're home before the sky has fallen. And we have 26 coal to continue our ventures. Let's eat some more melons. Okay. When I did sleep, I had dreams. Sometimes the dreams were pleasant, floaty ones. I dreamed I was on a cloud, hovering through multicolored plains of light, flying through an endless sea of stars. I'd wake from these dreams feeling happy and safe, like how I felt when Mom hugged me and stroked my hair. But other times, I had nightmares. The nightmares I had during the week were the worst I ever remember having in my life. Horrible, half-glimpsed blurs, images I'd wake from with a scream lodged in my throat, my sweat-soaked pajamas sticking to the skin of my back. At the time, I didn't remember the nightmares themselves, at least not completely. but every time I woke from one, I was left with the same fading image, an image of myself surrounded by thick, choking blackness, dense shadows everywhere. I couldn't see a thing, but I had the sense that I was standing at the center of a vast open space. Wind howled around me, sounds echoed. I wanted to open my mouth and yell for help, but I couldn't bring myself to, because I knew I wasn't alone. It was a week after Grandma's story that I used the special knock. It was a Saturday night, and my friend from school, Tim Jacobs, was around. We were having a sleepover. It's been a long, long time since I last saw Tim, but I can still picture him. Even though he was a month younger than me, I always remember him looking older. A tall, broad-shouldered kid with green eyes and messy blonde hair. A half-smirk permanently on his face. Tim was one of the most popular kids in our year, and in normal circumstances, he wouldn't have had anything to do with me. But our dads were friends from way back, and we'd known each other our whole lives. As Tim often liked to remind the kids at school, he was forced to hang out with me. When are you gonna get a TV in your room? Or a computer? Tim sat in his pajamas, slumped in the chair by my desk. He was fiddling with my desk lamp, switching it on and off. His face lit up with light and then disappeared and then lit up again. This wasn't the first time Tim had asked a question like this. Whenever we had sleepovers at my house, he spent the whole time moaning about my lack of stuff. No TV, no computer, no PlayStation. I had board games and I had books, but that was about it, and Tim had no interest in those things. You know my mom won't let me, I muttered back. It was 10 p.m. and we were both speaking in half whispers. We'd been told to go to sleep at 9 p.m., and Mom had already been up to give us one warning for talking. I knew from past experiences that one warning was all you wanted to get. Mom had a short fuse, and she wouldn't be above grounding me if I wasn't careful. I knew we were safe if we kept our voices low, though. Mom and Dad were both downstairs in the lounge, watching TV, some film. Faint, tinny sound of laughter drifted upstairs every now and then. As long as we weren't too loud, they wouldn't hear us. I glanced warily at Tim, who was still fiddling with the lamp. He was in a restless mood. He'd been silent and sullen most of the evening, rolling his eyes whenever I suggested stuff for us to do. Bad signs. From knowing him so long, I knew he could get reckless when he was bored. Reckless and mean. You know what I think? Said Tim now, keeping his eyes on the lamp. He was talking slowly and carefully, punctuating his words with a flick of the lamp switch. What I think, switch, light, is that your mom, switch, dark, is a bitch, switch, light. He put extra emphasis on bitch, savoring the bad word, the adultness of it. Then he stared across the room, at me. Fixing his green eyes on mine, I felt my own eyes prickle, and suddenly had to fight to hold back tears. I looked away from Tim, and my eyes found the cupboard. I know what we could do, I said suddenly. Tim followed my gaze. Not playing any more of your stupid board games, he said. It's kids' stuff. No, this isn't board games. This is a secret I caught myself. A secret someone showed me. Yeah, what secret? Tim's voice still had an edge to it, but at the same time I could tell I'd caught his interest. This was my best tool when Tim was in a bad mood. Distraction. If I argued or disagreed with him, he'd only make fun of me more. But if I could get his mind on something else, I might be okay. So basically, there's a special knock someone taught me, I said now. If I do a special knock on that cupboard door, then open it, we'll be able to see something really cool. Tim rolled his eyes. Yeah, right. No, really, a witch taught me how to do it. She cast a spell on the door, and now I can take us anywhere we want to go just by knocking on it. Tim stood up from the chair by my desk, the lamplight spilled over his face. His expression was half smirk, half scowl. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, he said. It's dumb even for you. How about instead of knocking on the door, I knock on your head a bunch of times? How about that? He took a step towards me, and I panicked. Well, if you're too scared to try it, I'll understand. This was a big risk, and I knew it. But as soon as the words were out, Tim paused. Why the hell would I be scared? I'm not scared of nothing. I shrugged. Well, the spell the witch did is dangerous. Really dangerous. Like, if we get the number of knocks wrong and I do more than I should, we could go someplace bad. Tim glanced across at the cupboard door and then looked back at me. His face was hard to read. Wait, so how many knocks is it meant to be then? 7, I said quickly. 7 takes us to this awesome place. But the witch told me that if we get the knocks wrong, especially if we get close to 13 or something like that, then the door opens someplace different. Someplace scary. Tim was no longer scowling. He looked across at the cupboard door again, a slight frown on his face. After a few more seconds, he shrugged his shoulders. Okay, go on then, let's try it. A brief wave of relief I felt was extinguished as soon as I turned to the cupboard door. It stood a few feet away from me, just outside the glow of the desk lamp, in the shadows. It seemed stupid to think that the cupboard wasn't anything more than just a cupboard. Baby stuff. Then again, as I looked at it, I remembered the dreams I'd been having all week, the nightmares, and Grandma's words from the previous weekend floated back to me. If you get the wrong number and then open the door. Grandma hadn't had her storytelling face on when she'd warned me about getting the number wrong. She'd had her serious face on, I was sure of it, as though she really meant what she was saying. And what was it she'd said about 13 knocks? If you somehow knock the wrong number of times, especially if that number happens to be 13 or something close to it, then whatever you do, don't open the door, okay? Don't open it, no matter what you hear on the other side. I shivered. Still, that was all right, wasn't it? I just have to make sure I only knocked 7 times. I'd count as I went, easy peasy. I pulled in a deep breath and stepped towards the cupboard. I felt Tim's eyes on me. From downstairs at the edge of my hearing, I caught laughter floating up from the lounge. It's okay, I told myself. Your parents are just downstairs, and besides, nothing's really gonna happen, is it? Grandma can't really turn doors magic. Get on with it, said Tim. If you're gonna do your special needs knock, or whatever the hell it is, then do it, okay? Don't just stand there. I ignored him, and now I was directly in front of the cupboard door. I could feel that tingle again, too. That pressure beneath my pajamas. My skin was all goosebumps. It might only have been the slight chill in my bedroom, and nothing more than that, but then again, I knew it was more than that. I could feel it in my mind. A heaviness. It was like the start of a headache, a pull behind my eyes. As I reached up and made my hand into a fist, I felt like I was no longer in control of my body. Knock. I struck the wood with my fist softly. The sound was dull and hollow. Knock. I felt Tim at the edge of my vision, moving up beside me. Knock. Somewhere in the distance, I heard a faint sound. Knock. At first I thought it was noise from the TV downstairs, but knock. Then I thought it might be coming from outside my bedroom window, and knock. Then it sounded as though it was all around me, and knock. Finally, as my fist struck the door the 7th time, I realized what the sound was. A whistle. A faint, low hum, coming from inside the cupboard. The echo of the final knock faded, melting into the noise beyond the door. My skin tingled. I stepped forward, almost in a trance, my hand reaching for the doorknob. And then I felt myself shoved to one side as Tim pushed past me. Bang, 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 bang. Before I had the chance to stop him, or even so much as call out, Tim had thumped his fist against the door 6 more times, making the total number of knocks 13. Beyond the cupboard, the whistling sound stopped. Tim reached out and gripped the doorknob. Don't! My words were only a half whisper, but something in my voice made Tim pause. Still clutching the doorknob, he turned to look at me, and the grin on his face grew wider as he saw the fear on mine. When he next spoke, his voice was a parody of shock and concern. Oh no! Did I get the special needs knock wrong? Did I make it all scary for poor widow Christopher? Tim pouted out his lower lip. Is widow Christopher scared of the big bad monsters in the cupboard? I listened for the whistling noise beyond the door, for any noise beyond the door, but could no longer hear anything. Don't open it, Tim. I'm serious. Oh, you're serious, are you? Oh, okay. I didn't realize how serious you were. I wouldn't want you telling your mommy on me. Tim took his hand away from the door and rolled his eyes, turned away. I felt my body begin to untense, but just as I was turning away too, Tim spun back around and grabbed the doorknob. Terror rolled through me in a sick wave. I turned just in time to see the cupboard door flying open. I opened my mouth to scream, but the sound died in my throat when I saw what was on the other side. Nothing. Nothing at all. Just some clothes hanging up and toys littering the floor. The exact same view I had whenever I looked into the cupboard. Nothing else. Oh, wow, the look on your face! I turned to see Tim with his hands on his knees, his body shaking with laughter. You looked like you were gonna wet yourself. Oh, Chris, the guys at school are gonna love this. I felt my cheeks burning. I turned away from Tim and stared into the shadows of the cupboard. Told myself I wouldn't cry. Told myself Tim would be gone in the morning anyway. I turned away from the cupboard and walked back across my room, towards my single bed. Where are you going? To sleep. Oh, what's wrong, Christopher? Did your special needs cupboard not work? Shut up. I was halfway across the room by that point, but when the cupboard door slammed shut behind me, I jumped. I looked back and saw Tim standing in front of it, staring after me, no longer laughing. What did you just say? Just leave me alone, Tim. I'm going to sleep, and you should too. If you keep banging around, Mom's gonna hear you, and then we'll both get grounded. Tim's frown deepened for a moment, and then faded. He glanced towards the bedroom door. As he paused to listen, I knew he could hear what I heard, footsteps on the stairs. The TV had gone off, and my parents were getting ready for bed. Tim looked back at me and shrugged, but when he next spoke, he lowered his voice. Whatever, I'm bored anyway, and there's nothing to do around here. He made his way over to his sleeping bag, which was set up near the bedroom door. I walked over to my desk and switched the lamp off, and then made my way to my bed. I suddenly felt exhausted. As I clambered into the covers, I heard Tim's voice, a soft hiss in the darkness. Night-night, Christopher. Don't let the cupboard monsters bite. His laughter followed me into an uneasy sleep. It was a noise that woke me. A soft tapping, like fingertips drumming on wood. I had a vision of Tim at my desk, tapping his fingers against the surface while he switched the lamp on and off. But when I cracked my eyes open, the room was still dark and my desk chair was empty. Tap, 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 tap. I hadn't dreamed it. The sound was still there, constant and steady. Tap, 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 tap. Coming from the far side of the bedroom. Dread surged through my chest and stomach, forcing me fully awake. I lifted my head from my pillow slowly and peered into the shadows. Tim was standing in front of the cupboard, his back facing towards me, blonde hair sticking up in clumps, still messy from sleep. As I watched, he took a step closer to it, then another. Finally, he began to reach out a hand as if in slow motion for the cupboard's doorknob. Tim, I spoke in a low hiss. Tim, what are you doing? He didn't react, just kept reaching his hand out, his fingertips now inches from the door. Tap, 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 tap. The sound was growing louder, more insistent. It was coming from inside the cupboard. As I kicked back the duvet and swung my legs out, my grandma's words raced through my mind. Whatever you do, don't open the door. Don't open it, no matter what you hear on the other side. Tim! I hissed his name again as my feet hit the carpet. He didn't react. From the way he was moving, I had the idea he might still be unconscious. Either that or in some sort of trance. Tap, 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 tap. Louder still, as I hurried across the room, Tim's fingertips touched the doorknob. The tapping sound stopped. I skidded to a stop a few feet from where he stood, terror rooting me in place. Tim! Don't! He half stirred. I saw his head move, turning slightly towards me. Caught a glimpse of one green eye, open, but glazed. Then Tim tugged the door open. The hinges squealed as it moved. Tim hadn't put much force behind his pull, so the door creaked open slowly, and it didn't open all the way, only about a foot. But that was enough. It was enough for me to glimpse the swirling, ink-thick blackness beyond, a darkness that was far too dense to be explained away with shadows. It was enough for me to hear the distant howling, like storm wind battering the eaves of a dilapidated house. And it was enough for me to feel a sense of dread that was worse than anything I'd ever felt before in my life. Tim! Tim, wake up! My voice wasn't any louder, but this time it seemed to get through. Tim let go of the doorknob. He turned towards me. I saw him blink rapidly, saw the glazed look leave his face. For a second, his green eyes found mine. He opened his mouth to say something. And then long fingers stretched from the cupboard and found his throat. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I could only stare on in shock as the fingers wrapped themselves around his neck. G. Tim tried to speak, but he couldn't. He could only make the same strangled noise, like a baby struggling to make itself understood. G. I listened to that noise in horror. Still rooted to the spot, time was moving impossibly slow. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in place on the carpet. I only know it was long enough. long enough for me to get a clear view of those fingers, which were like a cross between tree branches and tentacles tightening on Tim's throat, long enough for me to see his strained face turning from red to purple, to watch as the veins in his forehead stood out like worms beneath the skin, long enough for me to see him stretching out a hand towards me, the fingers flailing in my direction while the terror grew on his face. And that was what finally snatched me from my shock. Tim's hand. Something about seeing Tim, a kid who dominated playgrounds and sports fields for as long as I'd known him, reaching out towards me with desperation in his eyes. Without pausing to think what I was doing, I ran forward and grabbed him. I grabbed his hand. For just a second, I felt his grip tightening on mine. Wind howled in the distance, my eyes locked on Tim's. And then, with the force of a plaster being ripped from a cut, Tim was snatched backwards. 1 minute, he was holding my hand, and the next he'd vanished. I had a brief impression of him flying through the air, screaming as he was pulled through the dark gap in the cupboard's door. And then he was gone. His cries swallowed by the distant wind. I stared down at my empty hand, too many emotions raging through me to process, and only looked up again when I heard the crash of the cupboard door banging shut. By the time I heard footsteps and voices on the landing beyond my room, I'd started to cry. Damn. Okay. You know, that's what happens. That is what happens. Sorry for the lack of gameplay. I'm kind of... it's hard to play and read at the same time, I've found, especially if it's like a fictional story. But, you know what I could do, and what I will probably do next time, is I'll record voiceless gameplay and then do a voiceover on the top of it. I think that would work out. I feel like that's kind of the way to do it, isn't it? Maybe. Oh, I don't know. Just because I feel like I'd run out of things to talk about if I was just reading. But maybe that's kind of the point. Maybe the point is just to read. I don't know. The way I've seen this done is either AI voiceovers, which I guess I would be closer to copying, and then someone actually playing the game, but I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he did it. I think maybe he took breaks the way I'm taking breaks. Let's, feed ourselves. And I need to figure out what's keeping this tree here. Ow. Let's get rid of this so I can get these leaves cleared away. And then I will resume Tim's, I guess, tragic death. The interesting thing about this one to me is that he said he didn't remember Tim. So Tim just died. Tim died, and Christopher, our protagonist, he didn't remember a thing about it. And that's gotta be probably the worst part. It would be for me if I was unpacking all of this in counseling and realizing I was the last one who saw some kid alive, and then I was too young to explain what had happened properly. And even if I could have, who would have believed me? I mean, really, if a kid comes to you and is like, oh, the monster in the closet ate my best friend, you're like, okay, sure, whatever. And what? What? Like, how do you believe anything else? Do I still need to... Yeah, there's still like pistons and redstone and shit down here. Which is always really impressive. I'm actually gonna break these because sticky pistons are amazing. And we're gonna get up out of here. Wham. Sticky pistons are very useful, and I don't think I don't think there's anything down on that side. Okay. Nom 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 nom. Actually, I haven't had watermelon in a really long time. I should also, when are they gonna give crying obsidian like a purpose? Does it have a purpose that I'm just not aware of? Because I've never heard of crying obsidian being useful. Let's get some torches into this overhang here. so that we can actually see and all that. So there's the magma. I love how cloudy it is. Usually people do like underwater mining. I can't see underwater. I mean, I wouldn't be able to in real life either. Hey, wait a second. Oh my gosh, a parrot. 2 parrots. Ooh, light blue or dark blue? Just go dark blue. I like how royal it is. I'll name it royalty. Come here. Come here. Come here. Yes! That was so quick. Okay. My little parrot buddy. Come here. There we go. Had to pick him up. He's not on me anymore. Come here. Okay. I have to be careful. I have to get him back. Okay. No. Come here. No, 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 no. Come here. Come. No. Okay. He'll come this way. Right? Right? Okay. Yes. Now I'm gonna get him inside and just sit him down. I think. Yes, come here, baby. Come here. Here we go. Get. How do I? Yeah. Yeah. How do I? Guys. How do I get him off? I don't know what to do. Get off of me. I just want to sit you down, please. Please. Guys, what the hell? Yeah. There we go. Yeah, you can sit on the stairs. A little cute little bird. Okay. Curse of vanishing. How quirky. And that's all my melons. I should not have fed that bird all my melons. Okay. That's fine though, I have steak. I don't understand people who don't use steak as their main source of nourishment, like after they've developed their land and everything, because it gives you the most like saturation and everything. So I have my little balcony, which I will probably put my nether portal here, I'm not gonna lie. So let's, oh god, I can't, because it's not even. Let's see. And I'll put it here. Yeah, that'll be perfect. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Okay. I just need 3 more pieces. And then I'll have, you know, a little portal. And I'll have it on top of my little base. And that'll be so perfect. Okay, let's do this. Tim was never seen again. Gone, without a trace. When my parents first came into my bedroom that night, they thought it was all a game. Hide and seek got out of hand. I kept telling them Tim was in the cupboard. But whenever my dad opened it to check, he couldn't find anything. Same old piles of clothes and toys. Later, when the police came, I told them the same thing I'd eventually told my parents. That I'd seen something grab Tim and pull him into the cupboard. A hand that came out of the darkness and wrapped itself around his neck. None of them believed me. Why would they have? Looking back, I can see myself through their eyes, just an upset, terrified little kid whose friend had gone missing. Maybe they thought I'd had a nightmare, or maybe they thought I had seen something. An abductor pulling Tim into the bedroom window, perhaps. But my young, frightened mind had simply confused the details. Either way, whenever I mentioned the cupboard, they dismissed it. There was only one person who didn't. We were already in our new home when I next saw Grandma, our second one, a few towns over. At the time, I hadn't really understood why we were moving. I'd overheard Dad telling Mom that the talking would never stop if we didn't leave, but I hadn't really got what he meant. I didn't care, though. Moving meant I could go to a new school and get away from all the whispering kids on the playground. Also meant I'd never have to see Tim's mom, who turned up outside the school gates one day to scream questions at me again. Mostly it meant I could get away from the cupboard, and it meant I could sleep. My parents had eventually set my bed up in the spare room when I refused to step back in my own bedroom, but even that hadn't helped. Not really. Because I knew it was in there. I could still feel it. The thought of that cupboard was like a horrible itch to my mind. I kept wanting to scratch at it. That only made it worse. Moving houses got me far away from it once and for all. A couple of weeks after we'd moved, I finally saw Grandma. I'd been asking Mom and Dad if I could see her ever since the night Tim disappeared, but they kept putting me off, saying it wasn't the right time, and I could see Grandma once everything was more settled. But finally, after our furniture was moved in and they grew fed up with my pestering, I got my wish. Grandma came around for the evening, and at bedtime I asked if she could come to tuck me in, and she agreed. The second door to my new bedroom was shut, and I started babbling, telling her about the cupboard door, about the special knock, about how we knocked 13 times, about what happened to Tim. She listened at first, but I grew more and more worked up. She finally came and started stroking my hair. Shh, sweetheart, Grandma whispered. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. Shh, you're safe now. But can the thing in the cupboard find me here? What? No, you don't need to worry about anything in the cupboard. The magic only works once, and I don't have to use them again if you don't want me to. I meant you're safe from him. From who? From that boy who was bullying you, sweetheart. From Timothy. Grandma smiled and stroked my cheek. You're little friends in the Blacklands now. The temperature in my room was warm. My skin suddenly felt cold. I stared up at Grandma. What? What do you mean? She sighed. Don't you remember when I last came to see you and I tucked you in? You'd been crying and you had a cut lip. And before I told you about the special knock, you told me that your friend, a boy called Timothy, had tripped you up in the playground. You said he did it in front of the girls in your class and they'd all laughed at you. I stared at Grandma, thought back to the time I'd last seen her. I remember the feeling of having cried recently, and I remember the cut in my lip. I remembered probing at it with my tongue while Grandma spoke, but I couldn't remember telling about Tim tripping me. I grasped for the right words and came up short. Tim's my friend, Grandma. Well, I'll tell you something for free, sweetheart. Anyone who hurts you to make themselves feel bigger is not your friend. Grandma frowned for a second and then smiled again. But like I said, you don't need to worry about him anymore. Timothy's in the Blacklands, and he'll never get out. Grandma leaned down towards me. Her breath smelled like sweets and mint. I can't have anyone hurting my Christopher, can I? Now give your grandma a big kiss and say thank you. She leaned closer to me. There were so many questions and emotions swirling through me that my head felt like it was going to burst. I almost flinched away from Grandma, but I stopped myself at the last minute. As her face came closer to mine, instinct kicked in. Thank you, Grandma, I mumbled, giving her a kiss on the cheek. You're welcome, Christopher, she whispered. So Grandma kidnapped a little boy and fed him to demons in the underworld, is what I'm hearing. That's my takeaway. What the hell? What? Huh? I'm sick and tired of these scaly boys that I can very clearly hear and not see. So, I'm gonna just dig straight down here. And I will hit something, or I will not. I guess I will not. Yeah, it doesn't really look like I'm hitting anything. Okay. I guess we'll go back up. Wow. A lot of the comments on that story are along the lines of Tim was a dick and he deserved it. What the hell? That's terrible. Okay. So that is story number 1 and story number 2, and I've hit an hour. I think I'll leave this next one for next time. I will actually make some progress before I end. you know, because this is just tragic. I've done nothing. And next time when I record, I'll just do a voiceless gameplay so I can actually make some progress. And then I will do a voiceover for the audio. And I should have this video out today. This is actually my sister's birthday as well, which is so exciting. I hope my new mic is better than this last one, and I hope that it's not such fuzzy as far as not so fuzzy as far as quality goes. But we will see. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you made it this far, let me know what you think. Let me know what else I can improve on. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.